Let's quickly shift our focus now to the commodity markets. We have Manisha joining in with the latest. Manisha, so what's happening in your world this morning?
Yeah, well, it's fairly good, really, when you look at the precious metals and energy especially. We're looking at some gains in the overnight market there. I'll start with the gold and silver prices because gold gained up by a percentage point and silver is up 1.5% overnight. Even platinum, which has been declining for most part of August, gained up by 2.5%. And we have the crude oil price is also up 2% in the overnight markets. Well, the Fed July minutes is what the street really seems to be looking at, and the Fed seems divided over interest rate cuts in the month of September. Interestingly, there are concerns over inflation and the labor market, which the street is watching quite closely. But as of now, the markets have assigned an 85% probability of a September rate cut going forward. Well, the industrial metals are not doing so well. And it's a segment of markets, really, which is not doing so well ahead of that most important Jackson Hole Symposium. So within that, it is industrial metals that is declining. Bitcoin has come off quite sharply from 123,000 of an all-time high to 113,000 at this point in time. And the dollar index as well, soft ahead of Jackson Hole meet there. Well, this is an important symposium and it begins today. It is Jerome Powell's 8th and final keynote Jackson Hole speech as a Federal Reserve Chair. And the markets will watch out. They're expecting that Powell perhaps could pack a punch onto this one because it is his last. It also is seen as a very important event, and this is the most important event ahead of the Fed September 16-17 meeting. So this is where perhaps the cues could come in from, and the street will be hinging onto every word onto this one. The backdrop really is about the slower employment, growth, resilient wages and inflation rebound. So this is what we are looking at as we get into the Jackson Hole meeting right now. The Fed chair is also expected to make remarks about the future policy path. Remember, COVID, before COVID and after COVID have been three different worlds. And is something going to change going forward in the next 5 years? Some sense could come in from this. Also, there is expected a conversation on central banks' independence. That perhaps could dominate the conversations as well at this Jackson Hole meeting. Powell and various other central bankers are expected to speak on that. The central bankers from across the world also are gathering at this Jackson Hole meeting. And what is the theme given out this time in sense of study, research and remarks would be in sense of labor. That is what the economic policies and research are expected to speak about. It is going to be about labor markets in transition, and that's exactly what the next 2 days are going to be about. We will hear from global central banks, Powell himself, and that is what the street will watch for cues.
All right. Thanks very much, Manisha, for that. There's commodities in focus. We slip